is if you don't want to know, then you need to be smarter about your phrasing of what you want a yes to.
I like that. That's a charismatic getting to yes, right? It's like, what other
It
way?
is because I do a lot of proposals and I really don't ask for a commitment when I give them. I sell my idea, which I never propose anything that I don't believe is a win-win. So I'm touching on why it's a win for me, why it's a win for you and anybody else involved. And I'm leaving it at that.
Have you ever heard no and wondered if it was just a not now? Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Misterek, a talented fashion designer and entrepreneur who has mastered the art of navigating rejection and turning failures into opportunities. From her beginnings in fashion, design, and styling, Hope's journey is all about reframing no as a chance to rethink, refine, and move forward. She shows us how being open-minded and staying proactive can lead to unexpected success. Join me in this fascinating conversation with my friend Hope Misterek, where she shares invaluable insights on turning rejection into opportunities. Well, Hope, thank you so much for coming on. I am super excited to have you as a guest, and I love your story because I've known you for, I think, 20 years now. You have done so much in your life, and I know for a fact that you have experienced rejection and been told no numerous times. And your story is just great. I'd like to ask you right now, though, is like, even though you have this experience and you're confident in these certain aspects, like, when was the latest time that you could remember that you were anxious about it, or your palms started to sweat and you were afraid to ask for something or to be rejected? Is there a time recently that you've experienced that?
Um, yes and no. I mean, that phrasing's like a little bit tricky because you asked me a lot of things there, but um being that I'm going through this new property that I just purchased and trying to rent it out, that has been happening to me pretty much every day in the last month. Over financing, over getting it rented out, over association approvals, neighbors approvals, neighbors buy-in and support, all of those things. And so, yeah, it's been happening to me every day.
So what keeps you going forward from there? I mean, it's like what is the mental state that you're in? What keeps you moving forward every time that you experience that? And it seems daily.
The funny thing is like at 50, almost 4 years old this year.
44. We were going to say 44. We'll
um,
change that in.
I it amazes me how much how much I know, how much I didn't know, when I was younger, even today, and how much I'm still affected by, obviously, an attachment to yes. I mean, we all are. We have to be, because we have hopes and dreams and expectations tied into what we need other people to say yes to.
Well, and I think that we're all told no more than we hear yes. I think that that's normal.
I mean, prior to your question, the literal word no, I don't think I've really heard that in many, many years. And so that's a plus, that people just don't answer with a straight no, honestly. Like if I have to think back to like real hard no's, it's definitely like when I was a child, or even when I was young and like looking for big opportunities. And at those times, I definitely was told a hard no. You're too young. Um, no, you can't play with matches, things like that. But when you reach a certain age, I think you don't really get as many hard no's. you sort of get the opportunity to figure out how to make it a yes. So,
And if you were to define failure, how would you define failure?
it's funny because somebody else had asked me that probably about 20 years ago. And well, they asked me about my failures. And at the time, I said, I haven't really had any. And they were like, well, what hasn't worked out how you wanted it to? And I was like, well, a million things, but that's not a failure. And so this actually inspired me because knowing that you're going to ask me that, I looked up the definition of failure, which is actually a lack of success, which was surprising to me. Because to me, a failure was like the doors closed, the nails in the coffin, that's it, it's dead, there's nothing, not even like I said, certainly I've had failures, or I've closed businesses, I've decided not to pursue things, um but I didn't consider them failures, but they were certainly a lack of success. And so I feel like that's a couple things. I mean, I opened a store and I closed it when I first moved to Seattle. That would definitely be considered a failure.
Hmm.
Um, but most of the things, why I perceive them as not, is because they've all tied into the progression. So, um, I went into these things because I loved them or I had an appreciation for them. Obviously, my career in fashion continued on. It just took a different shape. But all of that experience, all of that passion that went into that, all of the things that I learned, both personally and professionally through that, they carried forward to the next thing. So
Almost as if they seem to reveal your next move, right?
yeah,
It's like,
they're the path. Like my successes are a culmination of my failures and the progression of every step that I've taken, even where I haven't put a nail in the coffin. I put a nail in the coffin of that store. But I mean, even that store inventory came with me to
mhm.
build my portfolio and amass a massive archive of wardrobe that benefited my styling career and other aspects of my career enormously.
Well, and it's interesting you mentioned the door because if I was to define failure, I would say I mean, real failure is either you quit or you die. I mean, it's
Right,
that positive, right? And you kind of
right.
mentioned that with the nail in the coffin. And failure to me is like you come up to this door and it's locked and you don't know how to get in. And if you take the time and you don't quit, maybe you can find another key to get in, or you try a different door and hopefully that door gets you to that same result that you want to get to. What's behind that door? Or you go around the door, you go through the door, you go under it, or you find a different pathway through that. And I have found that I think that is a big thing, is that you're revealing your next moves when you're told no, or when you're rejected, or when you fail at something, or you make an error. It just sets you up for your next move and to stay positive. Would you agree that um, eh, staying positive and optimistic, is that something that has carried you through that?
Um, I I would say I'm like a realist. If people were to ask me, I'm definitely not an optimist. I'm a realist.
Hmm.
I think passion, and being a dreamer, being an innovator, those are the things that have carried me through. It's one of the other things that I wanted to mention, when I knew we were talking about no and failure is, one of my friends who recently passed, one of the things that she said to me early on, she was a big part of my life. We would brainstorm business ideas all the time. She was entrenched in fashion, and much of her career too went step by step with mine, where we were both progressing and helping each other grow in various ways and always bouncing ideas. And one of the things she told me very early on was, don't say no. I hate the word no. I hate it. And I really agreed with her on such a profound level that I started to tell people that I hate no.
Hmm.
And the reason is because it could be not now. It could be like think that through a little bit more. Could be like flesh out the details of that. It could be, sit on it, let
Hmm.
it hatch, It never has to be no. And I find that when you work with innovators and dreamers and people who love what they do and love the thought of, I consider myself obviously in the industry of forecasting and trend setting, there never should be a no. Everything that you look at that's traditionally a no, if you flip that on its head, it's the next step in progression in the world. And so you're behind in what's going to happen in the future if you're forecasting.
Well, and I say that all the time. Like one of the things that I mention is that when I'm told no, it actually inspires me or motivates me. And what I do is I take the no and I switch the letters to on, as in it's time to move on and find a different path or find a different door to go through or find a different yes. And you had also mentioned that it's like just because someone tells you no or they stop you, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get to a yes eventually through that person either. It's like if
Right.
maybe they just need you to change a little bit or grow or improve or become a little bit better or a little trim something off of the cost or the budget or something like that until it becomes a yes. So not to give up, but to always stay proactive and continue moving forward, keep that momentum moving.
Right. Then, and there's been many times in my life where I've put things aside and they continue to resurface. Again and again, not necessarily because it was a hard no, just because my passion waned or because I didn't get an immediate yes. I said like, this idea is like half baked or not good, put it aside. And then years later, I'm like, oh, here we are again. Like, so crazy how it keeps coming up.
Mhm. And do you find that you set those goals and you have a goal or you dream and to get to that dream or to get to that goal, if it's not happening as fast as you want it to, do you just what does that motivate you to keep going a little harder? Or what would you suggest that if you want to land another Tommy Hilfiger shoot or something like that, how is it that how would you goal set for that? What is your process?
Well, I would say, so first of all, I think the me today is much different than the me 20 years ago. And 20 years ago, I think you know the answer to that. I would have hit it hard. I would have spent 24 hours a day with this plan of action, 950 steps, A to Z. I know how to I need an elephant on set. I have plan A all the way to Z. And after Z, the begging starts. Like, I
All
know,
over again.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna start begging people for that elephant. Like if all my plan of A to Z doesn't work. Um, Now, even then I was a little bit organic about it. Like I knew I could see like how I was going to have to go. Like, okay, the easiest route is A. Let's see if the zoo lets me have the elephant, B, not the zoo, maybe there's a private owner, C,
Hmm.
on and on and on. But now I'm like a little bit more organic. And so I somewhat seemingly give up on things, I guess, a little bit easier. I'm not as, you know, OCD freak, 90 miles an hour, killing myself to get something done. Um, I'm more, I know what this takes. I can do this. It's worth my effort. And I have different irons in the fire and sort of like, let's see what comes to fruition from what the irons are, how easily they come to be.
Do you do you think that you pick and choose? You have the ability now to make choices versus 20 years ago it was like it's death or famine. It's like it's either
I
feast
think
or famine.
I think I underestimated the choices that I had then. I think, the more experience that you have too, the more you know your real value. And that's something where, when I was younger, I was working like, you know, 350 jobs a year, an excruciating volume that not a lot of people could do, had the opportunity to do, or in their right minds would choose to do that I
Sure.
did. And some of it, a lot of it was insecurity because I thought like one day the love affair with my work will be over and I'm going to ride the wave as long as possible. Could happen over anything that the love affair is over. Could be
Hmm.
me, and it could be clients, it could be sign of the times, I age out, a lot of things. Um, what I didn't realize then was like if I had just managed my rate and the job selection better, I wouldn't have had to burn myself out. I wouldn't have had to be this maniac. Um, Obviously it was like, you know, great when it was happening and I handled it and it worked out well and I met tons of people and I got some great experience. Um, but I think today, now it's more so like picking and choosing, not going through the torture, not just sucking it up and bearing down and getting through it. It's much more about like enjoying it, enjoying what's happening, making sure the money's right with the scope of the work, and that I'm still growing, you
Hmm.
know, that it's not just secondhand, like oh, I can do this job with my eyes closed, and so I'll do it. I know what things inspire me, motivate me, and it's definitely, learning new things, trying new things, experimenting, innovating.
Well, and I think you are where you are today because of not only that confidence that you've gained and those skill sets and experience that you have through those years of different work and such, but at the same time, it's like I think what I'm hearing you say also is that you're at a point in your life now where you can pick and choose the things that you're more passionate about and that you can put more energy and heart behind, and it doesn't feel as much as work maybe as it did 20 years ago.
And that I want to emphasize isn't, it just happens to be my philosophy because of my age and experience. And that could apply to other people's, because I think, for me, when I was younger, I wanted everything, by the time and that goes back to the no's. It's by the time I was 14 or 15, I wanted a job a 50-year-old had. I wanted to be a CFO, I wanted to be a CEO, I wanted to be a manager, I wanted to, and I thought I could. And in a lot of ways I could have. I mean, I was precocious, I was bright, I was sharp, I had a certain amount of education, but being 50 and looking back, I know I didn't know a lot of things. I didn't even know a lot of things at 40. And those things you just can't fast track. But had I been given the opportunity, I probably would have been a pretty good manager, whatever, whatever, whatever. Um, but I think the delusion is that doing what you love, or picking and choosing wisely, or letting the organic opportunities materialize, or even the amount of opportunities, that they don't exist at 20. They do. You just don't notice that they do.
You have blinders on, you see things a little bit differently. Um,
Yeah.
is it, do you feel like you had tapped in on in this with that you were working so hard because you didn't know if you're going to have that other job, you were working 300 jobs, and it was like, do you feel like you had self-doubt issues, like imposter syndrome, like people were going to realize that maybe you didn't know all that you knew about the color scheme or about the styles or something like that? Did you deal with self-doubt or imposter syndrome in some way?
Well, so I'll tell you a little story. So there were two things that plagued me almost my whole life. And one was that three. One was that I didn't know how to ride a bicycle. Two was that I did not know how to swim. and 3 was that I didn't get a degree. And those 3 things seem to always haunt me, no matter what. I could go years without anybody caring about any of them. And I eventually learned how to swim, got my motorcycle license, learned how to ride a bike, and got some semblance of a degree. However, um, when you talk about imposter syndrome, I think when you're in that position, I wasn't a fake it till you make it. I would literally say to people, I can't talk to you right now. I got to become an expert in this thing in 5 seconds. And I would do an enormous amount of homework to be an expert on whatever I needed to do. Now it's like at your fingertips. You can Google it, chat GPT, whatever. But back then you had to, get a book, do some research, talk to people. Fortunately for me, I guess my dad was an engineer, and so I knew a little bit about engineering some things, and that's kind of what I would do when I approached jobs. I was approached for a big job actually, which didn't wind up coming to fruition, but it was building a bunch of floating docks that would be able to be in a car commercial and hold cars, 3 cars to be exact.
Mhm.
And that night I got home at 8 o'clock at night, and my husband said to me, like, "Oh, do you want to go out to dinner?" And I said, "No, I need to become an expert on floating docks that can hold a car." And that's what I did that night. So,
Well, and it's funny, but you have accomplished so much, and I have looked up to you for years. Meeting you not only as an actor and a model, but it's like just you as a mentor to me in my life as a business owner and entrepreneur. And it you have all of these accomplishments, and it's very easy for people because they do have things at the fingertips, the ability to get ahead, but they also see you and they're like, oh, look at this list of clients that she's worked with. Look at what she owns. Look at what she has. Look at all of these skills that she has that she can close her eyes and do everything, right? And I think the problem is that when people see you, they see all of these accomplishments and what you've achieved, and they don't realize how much time and sacrifice and effort that you've actually put into achieving that. And I love that example about do you want to go out to dinner? And you're like, no, I have to do the work that is required to do for me to be able to figure out tomorrow, right? But nobody sees that. Everybody sees the tomorrow, especially if it's successful. Would you like to add on to that about doing the work that's required, like how much sacrifice you have put into achieving what you have?
I don't even really consider it sacrifice. Like, Malcolm Gladwell had a book about like 10,000 hours of expertise, and the fashion styling, wardrobe styling industry is actually very parallel to that statement. When you decide that you wanted to be a stylist in photography, you would go out and test. You'd find a team, you'd assemble a team or hopefully get absorbed into one where you could test your skills on styling. You wouldn't be getting paid. You'd be getting images for your portfolio, and you'd be working with people probably who also knew nothing like you.
Mhm.
Maybe somebody saw something special in you. For me, a couple people did see something special in me. I'm not quite sure why. I think they knew I loved fashion. Um, I think there were various reasons. And I mean, the people who helped me, like when I first got to Seattle, I'm so grateful for. Like, I don't even think they know because we like lost touch. But there were some people who were just really on my ass to like make something happen, really believed in me. Um, and I think like some of that wardrobe that came from the failure of my store, some of that progression um, helped helped my career. Maybe what they saw in me was that I had a massive wardrobe archive that nobody really had. Um, but aside from that, I put in 10,000 hours, and beyond the 10,000 hours of free testing, free, marketing, free meetings, trying, calling people, networking, whatever. Um, I continued to test. And so when I was working 350 days, if people would ask me to test, people who didn't even have a single job, were brand new, who were like me starting out, I would test with them.
Giving back.
Giving back, and it actually wasn't foolish. It was like um, I would go speak at schools, and it helped progress my career, helped progress my infamy,
Hmm.
helped progress my network. Always, there were always new people coming out, new people with new ideas, new visions. Again, like people who didn't know the rules, people who didn't know what was like traditional or what's acceptable. And so you'd be doing things that like are innovative,
Testing your craft, right?
testing your craft and seeing what like kids 10 years younger, 20 years younger, what are they doing? What do they think? What's their inspiration? How's that, and not looking at it like, oh, they're foolish, they don't know, they know something.
Sure. Well, and we all have stories and knowledge and experience that we could gain from, and I don't care how old you are or where you're from. We all have that. I think the speaking industry is like that as well. It's like the hours that I put in with Rotary or Toastmasters or free speeches at schools and things were just setting me up and giving me that skill set and refining the speeches that I started to get paid for later in time. And I think it made me stronger just being able to give back and listen to that feedback and grow as an individual. And I hear you saying that as well, is that that is that sacrifice to get to that achievement. It's like you put in those reps, like when you're lifting weights or something like that, you don't all of a sudden have huge biceps. You have to start at once a week, every day, doing these bicep curls, a vertical curl, a palm up curl. It's like it takes years to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And it's like, but people see the end result only, and they
Yeah.
forget about everything that you put in to it beforehand, even if it is free, even if it was not. But the point is that you did it. You did what was required, and that is why you've achieved what you have.
And there were so many things about it that I love to this day. Like I love being creative with like wardrobe. I love seeing designs, beautiful designs and textiles. I love working with my friends on these things. I love being creative, and I love leaving behind some kind of visual legacy, that I'm proud of. And I love like striving towards the perfect image. And through those things, it didn't matter if I was being paid or not. So whatever I was doing to hone my craft was like playing. I just became a much more skilled player.
I love that. I love that. Um, if when you talk about one of the coolest things in my careers that I've had, just like you have had different ones, it's the stories that you get, those experiences. And it's like those net experiences that you have, like a net worth of some kind, but it's like you have this accumulation of all these stories that just you remember those more than anything else. And one of my favorite stories for you was the piano on the shoot that you did. And I would love for you just to hit on that because it's one of my favorite stories that you've ever told.
So I'll tell the pre-story is I was hired by a brilliant set stylist for Tommy Hilfiger. He originally approached me to assist him because he was shooting out on the Olympic Peninsula in the rainforest. He was from New York, between New York and LA, as was much of the crew. And he was tasked with getting some enormous set objects out there, including a concert grand piano. And so since I had shot in a test out on the Olympic Peninsula, I knew what he needed to do to deal with it, because he was like, I'm being told you're not allowed to bring any kind of vehicle out there. You're not allowed to bring anything with tires. I don't know how we're going to get this piano out here. Can you tell me your experience? I sent him my resume, and it was actually really funny because he critiqued my font, which had never happened before. But again, big learning lesson. I was already like a very established stylist, and I learned like, okay, even the font on my resume, I should be styling my resume. I never even thought about it, but I learned a lot from him. He had skills that I didn't have, and maybe I had some skills he didn't. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. But um,
I'm sure
eventually,
you did.
he asked me to head up the prop team, and so I brought on my team under me, and we brought a refinished 1920s baby grand or concert grand piano out onto the beach in the Olympic Peninsula. And the models, I had all kinds of things negotiated with how to get that piano in and out of there. And one of the things was that if the piano, we pulled all of the guts out of it in order to make it lighter because it had to be moved by hand. And if the piano got water up to its legs, the piano itself, including the guts, would be put back in and be donated to a school for lessons. If it went above the legs, nobody wanted to see it again. So as we were shooting both video and stills, 6 to 10 models flipped the piano over and over and over for the video down the beach. It indeed got a lot of water. Nobody wanted to see it ever again. And in order to get it out without killing my guys, we chose to cut it up with a chainsaw.
That's a good, I love that story because it's it's finding a way to get to do whatever is required to do, right? And then at the same time, it's like you got to go with the flow and you have to make that happen. And I love that. Uh, what is if you were to put on a billboard right now or a banner that was flying across on an airplane and you wanted the listeners to have one takeaway, that's something that you could absolutely do right now to help them navigate no or get over self-doubt or to overcome failure, that fear of that rejection, what would that one thing be, whether it's a word or a theme?
So first I want to say I recently talked to somebody who was trying to decide about a law, an education in law, and really a little bit tortured about picking the wrong route, wrong school, wrong major, wrong. And I have to say that like your choices are not the end. They're only the beginning. And so if it's a misstep, if it's a bad decision, if it's too hard, if it's too easy, whatever it is, it's only the beginning, and that whatever you're gonna take out of it is gonna just be a stepping stone to the next thing. Like, don't worry so much about, you obviously like have some kind of genuine love for law that probably isn't going to go away, even if you picked a little bit too narrow. Um, in terms of navigating no, and I think I started to say it a little bit earlier, is that I haven't gotten a lot of no's as an adult, partially because I don't phrase anything to a yes or no answer. And so that would be my takeaway is if you don't want to know, then you need to be smarter about your phrasing of what you want a yes to.
I like that. That's a charismatic getting to yes, right? It's like, what other
It
way?
is because I do a lot of proposals and I really don't ask for a commitment when I give them. I sell my idea, which I never propose anything that I don't believe is a win-win. So I'm touching on why it's a win for me, why it's a win for you and anybody else involved. And I'm leaving it at that. And I'm also saying we can flush out these details to make it better for you. And I'm not asking for a yes today.
You're leaving the door open because it could be tomorrow or the next day or a year
Right.
down the road. You have
And
no idea.
basically, I'm asking, what are the next steps? This is what I'm proposing. What are the next steps for us to start this?
I love that. If you were to say one thing that people can do today to make that difference, is that what it would be?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And make sure that you have the next step. Sometimes you got to be the one who's kicking the can down the road and saying, what are the next steps? For me, I'm going to do this. I'm going to follow up with you tomorrow. I'm going to have some more ideas about this little part that you seem to say doesn't work that well for you. You mentioned this. Let me circle back. Let's have another meeting.
So always being prepared, number one, and having that next step in process, knowing that no matter what they throw, you're able to pivot or adapt around that.
And even if you can't do it, on the spot, say, I heard what you're saying. Let me go think about that. You also don't want to give a no. Don't give a no. So you get back like, we're not going to do that unless it costs $5 instead of 15. Don't say no. Say, I've heard what you said. Let me go figure this out and let's reconvene.
Negotiation, the art of negotiation. I love that. Well, thank you so much for bringing such a different insight into this with your experience and your skill set, especially in the industry. Where can people find you now, and what are you up to that people can contact you?
I just bought a place, which hopefully is the first of many, for rental and hospitality. That you could find through, well, me personally, my Airbnb, but also I have my website, hopemisterek.com, my agency website, which now has more information about the other services, interiors, styling, definitely still photography talent. That's ajentsE.com.
Well, I love that, but I also want the listeners to understand that it's not just like an Airbnb. You're providing an experience set based off of all of your knowledge and experience. Like you're giving the renter or who's coming into it an experience. It's not just like a place to stay, right? You want to tap into that?
Correct. So the idea is much more of a concierge level service. So basically they come to a beautiful beachfront Airbnb, and it's remarkably decorated. Things in the Airbnb are for sale, and eventually I hope will be a showroom for artists and things like that. So it'll be a little bit more shoppable. And then they can also add on services. So if you want your refrigerator stocked, say, you're going to have dinner at the Airbnb 3 nights. We can plan the menu for you for, 4 people, have the groceries there, have recommended recipes for you, arrange a chef to come in and cook it for you, arrange dinners out, arrange trips around town to see all the coastal areas, fishing trips, boating trips, cocktail hour, barbecue, clam bakes, whatever.
Well, and I know that you are top notch on all of those things. So I know I just please send me the link to sign up for that for sure, because I'm going to
Definitely.
enjoy that. Well, thank you so much for jumping on, Hope. I'm wishing you the best, and I hope that the Airbnb and that whole idea of not only taking it from one spot but to multiple facilities and things to spread that idea and that experience, I think is right up your alley, and I'm wishing you the best of luck. And thank you for being my friend and being a part of my life and such a mentor to me.
Thank you. Love you.
I love you, girl. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Navigating No. I hope you found today's conversation just as inspiring and insightful as I did. Since this is a brand new podcast, we'd love your help to make it even better. So, if you enjoyed this episode, we would love to hear your feedback. And if you think someone else could benefit from hearing it, please share it and help us spread optimism and positivity. We release a new interview every Monday, so don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening.